The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
Hey everybody, how's it going? We are back with another episode of World Blockchain Roundtable. Today I will be your host. So we're going to do this a little bit Greg-ish, which, if you hate a Greg episode, then go ahead and change the channel. But I recommend you stay because we've got a really interesting topic this week. It's going to be freestyle. So we got some really cool questions coming and probably some things to learn from the questions themselves from what I've seen so far. Anyway, so our hosts today are Lisa Mighty Davis. How are you, Lisa?
Great.
And
I love a Greg style episode, so I think it'll be fun. I think most of our episodes are a little freestyle, so I think this will be fun.
Indeed. And Sean, Satoshi Sean, entrepreneur and everyone's friend. Welcome back, sir.
Good to have you back too.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's really good to be back. I'm not going to regale anyone with my terrible story. I was blowing up a Death Star. In any case, so before we get into it, let's just go through the quick updates. Last week's episode, each host will receive 100 lot. Each topic contributor from last week will receive 50. Last week's theme was employment and jobs, nominated by Distant. So he will get an extra 50 lot off of that. These ownership tokens, as always, come with, same with me, guys, perpetual passive income, free edits, governance votes. This is on Den.Social. So join up, check it out, contribute to the show with questions, with topic ideas, and win. So we also have some results from the World Blockchain Roundtable DAO for September themes. So we're going to have one be blockchains that meet or compete with AI. We have blockchain for flight rewards programs. That's, that one sounds like yawn type of business thing, but there's actually some really cool stuff that comes out of that. So I'm excited for that one. Past, present, state, and future of blockchain tech. And then digital asset custody insurance. So we got some heavy ones, we got some light ones, we got some really interesting ones that will surprise you. So definitely looking forward to this month. And then the theme of this week, freestyle, which was decided by DAO Vote to accommodate the 5th show of August. So just like we had a blue moon, blue supermoon, if anybody saw it last night, there is a blue moon episode, and that's this one. So I guess unless anybody wants to say anything before we get going, let's jump into questions. All right.
Explains why I couldn't sleep. So I'm just glad to know.
Insanely bright. I have some photos on my phone that literally look like they were taken mid-afternoon with a blue filter on. So anyway, I tried to load one for the background, but then decided I wasn't going to try to plug my phone into my 900-year-old Mac. But anyway, so question one, and this is from I Am for I Am. Did Impact Theory use NFTs to solicit shares in their business in the form of NFTs? And was this a case that was not in compliance with the SEC because it failed the Howey test? Note, Impact Theory settled with the SEC and agreed to destroy its NFTs. Ironic that it could destroy its NFTs that were held in private wallets. Right? That's kind of weird, but a lot of people build in, a lot of projects build in ill-advised centralization into their smart contracts, and that can happen. So here's just for some context. I'm going to read this read this out for people who aren't familiar with any of this stuff. So bear with me.
Is this the case that just recently went through that showed the SEC calls or made NFTs securities?
Yeah.
Is that what this is regarding? Okay, just wanted.
This is that's what they claim.
That's what they claim. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what people who
SEC
want
doesn't
NFTs to
pause.
be securities claim because they hate NFTs.
I have something to say. Actually,
Yeah.
jump into the questions if we're gonna get
Sure.
this one. There's a big shift now, where, and I think it's partly due because of crypto. I mean, if you've been in this a while, you saw the development of it and how crypto had these huge gains, years ago. But it was huge gains for average people, kind of like the Wall Street bets really pissed off a lot of people, and elite people, and shook up, the legacy system.
Right.
I think that crypto did that. I mean, I was a financial advisor, and I didn't really think about the qualified investor ever, because my target was the military, and and I've talked to Greg about this. I was so offended by it when I really, learned the scope and the depth of it, and how anti-constitutional it is. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. The government itself, Congress, is now looking at the SEC because of all the controversy, because of the overreach, same like with the ATF. And I talked about this on our show on Tuesday with Lisa, that the government is now accusing the SEC, because it's like all these other agencies. They're not elected. They have a charter, and they have funding, and they're started to do a job, and they can be fired,
Defunded.
they can be defunded, they can be fired, they can just be closed down, they can be absorbed into something else, into like transportation or commerce, and literally they could be in the Department of Agriculture, whatever. But they have and you can go to their website. We went there on our show. They have a charter, and they have a mission, and their mission is three-pronged. One is to protect investors. One is to do something else. But one of their main objectives is to facilitate and encourage development.
Yeah.
Business development or something.
Right. They're supposed to be taking that into account with every decision they make.
They have, and the government's like, hey, you haven't done your job. You've done the opposite. You've made America, a place where tech is scared is leaving.
Oh yeah.
And for people, it's harder for someone to start a business. It's harder for a company to go public. It's harder for all these things. They're like showing proof in these declining numbers. They're like, you guys are not just failing, but you're doing the opposite job. So I think that when it comes to the SEC and all the stuff that we're talking about, it's if you look at the bigger picture, it's obvious to everyone now. And I think that most people didn't know about the SEC, care about the SEC. It's that how most Americans are. Oh, it doesn't affect me, so I don't care. But with crypto, people got a taste of running with the big boys. Yeah. And I think with with the Wall Street bets, how Robinhood and other people, they did this shady thing where it's like, oh, you can't buy anymore, but you guys can sell, and everything else is frozen.
Oh, that was just layered power move by somebody at a very high position in the finance sector.
But I think everyone
nuances
knows
of how you get there.
Regular folks saw that, and it's like, oh, this system and this. Who's in charge? Well, they're in charge. They're in trouble. And it started with elections. Common people were like, hey, what about this SEC doing this? And what do and it became an actual topic for discussion. And I think we're starting to see the fruits of that now.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's something really, and I actually think this dovetails with the question that I was asking. Very interesting. So I want to give a give this a different spin than I was originally going to. Let's not read out the first few paragraphs in the settlement, because I think that crediting this SEC with any action that we can consider credible is because of, not just what you talked about here, Sean, but because of other factors, to do with the legitimacy of the current government. That we really ought not take anything they're doing at face value or give them fair, full faith and credit that anything that they're claiming to do, even if it's under the color of law that sounds colorably true, right? Even if this looks like a case where maybe they were right, which I personally don't think it does. I think there's a threshold question. Not a lot of people know who Gary knew who Gary Gensler was until all of this recently happened, right? He was kind of an unknown, hiding in the background. But if you go on WikiLeaks and you search his name, you get a lot of backroom chatter when he was the basically chief financial officer of the 2016 Hillary for America campaign, right? This guy is embedded deeply with her. He's embedded deeply with Liz Warren. He's embedded deeply with all of the people who are currently, I think, arguably puppeteering the Biden response to, like, if Bidenomics is a thing, Gary Gensler is one of its scions.
He wrote the checks for the
exactly.
for the paying the spy guy for the
Steele dossier.
Steele dossier.
Yeah. This guy was literally writing the checks for that.
He was the treasurer.
That's a really good point, Lisa. That's so this, in this light, we were talking about a guy who is in on this idea that regular people need to sit down, be quiet, and listen to their betters, right? And that is ultimately at the core of what's wrong with the qualified investor rule, right? The fact that the SEC is trying to protect people from NFTs. Can you imagine anybody buying an NFT who's like so freaking dumb that they don't know what they're buying, that they don't know what they're getting, that they don't know what they want of it? I can't. I really can't.
It's like stopping children from buying baseball cards.
Exactly.
Because it's too risky to buy a baseball card.
Yeah.
You're thinking that you might get that King Griffey Jr. and that's just too dangerous.
Right. Exactly.
And so you stop now.
Right. And what we've learned from the Ripple litigation is the core of the problem with treating tokens as securities of any sort. Right. It's a way of trying to shoehorn an investment contract into a piece of technology. And it doesn't make sense if you think about it in terms of facilitating the growth of a stronger American economy, which is part of their mission, right? Doesn't make any sense at all, because this is a new technology, ultimately. These are lines of code. These people are mostly developers who are coming up with these projects and building them. They are... they're not Wall Street people. They're people who have an idea for tech, and they see a way to make it also sort of crowdfund itself. Right? This is just another resurgence of the TikTok or the Kickstarter question. And I think that we should probably look at this from the standpoint of what are their motives in trying to change the subject from fungible tokens to NFTs.
I think a good point to what you said, because I think that there's a good chunk of the world is very stupid. And it's frustrating being someone who's not stupid when you deal with like intellectuals, because like doctors, big thing with, I've been in the hospital for a while and everything. And, it's like you have to break down the barrier. It's like, oh, I'm not a stupid person. They're like, oh, you're not. Okay. Well, here, now I can talk to you like a person. Now, it's very annoying. But I think when it comes to NFTs, you're talking about people thinking they're your betters. The fact that you can get a wallet, that you can get crypto, that you can transfer it to that you know different chains,
Mhm.
that you can go, onto the website, connect your wallet, that you can, usually convert it to from one chain to another to be able to buy a certain NFT. It's stuff that those bettors would never be able to do. They don't understand Facebook. They don't understand, Twitter.
Mhm.
The fact that they to buy an NFT is basically, like you were saying, kind of proof that you know what you're doing in the first place.
Right. Well, and the ZRX or the Ripple analysis, rather, ZRX. I love ZRX, by the way. If any of you guys are watching, you guys are awesome. Um, uh, but the Ripple case taught us right that a blind bid-ask transaction on a decentralized service that's peer-to-peer is not an investment contract situation, right? You can go on. I'm assuming that you could probably have gone on Uniswap NFTs and in a blind bid-ask transaction purchased one of these, right? And they're still trying to run with the theory that the instrument is intrinsically bound up in this software artifice. This abstraction we've created called the NFT is just an entry in a blockchain database of a certain type. It's all it is. And to try to turn it into an investment contract is intentionally trying to stifle technology.
Yeah, and that goes against.
And that goes against their charter, to Sean's point.
Bring it up.
Yeah.
I should get the web, because it's from their website. I mean, I had heard. I'd watched some of these senators, and they're like, "You guys suck." They're like, "Well, we know what we're doing," and then they just get. And they're like, "Look at these numbers. Look at what you've done. You suck. You're doing the opposite. Our country is falling behind when it comes to everything." And Joe has been saying that since I met him years and years ago. When it all starts, like, stop this. This is the future, and you're making it leave our country.
I think the case goes beyond to, at this point, guys, even making it leave the country, right? I think that there is one place on Earth in recent history where human beings should go and be free to pursue something great that moves the human race forward, right? And that has been the United States. By stifling it here, they cast these projects out into the cold of the rest of the world that does not accommodate innovation the same way we used to.
Hey, when you put your tinfoil hat on, and you look at like the WEF and all these other, it does start to look like it's intentional. Like, hey, what's another way we can destroy, like
sell America to China?
What America is made for. There's this. People don't understand the radical idea of America, because it was, just literally a couple generations ago, the world was a completely different place. The fact that Europe and all these other countries are a lot more free is because of us, and we've declined. And there's this equilibrium, because there's no difference between America and most European countries. There's no difference between most European countries or Western countries.
Right. It's a matter of degree, not character now.
Yeah. And it's slowly, America's slowly eroded. Really not that slowly. A lot of other countries have improved. You can just go back not that long ago and look at slavery.
Yeah.
We killed each other in order to stop it. We fought a war with ourselves, and family killed family, and took a huge stand. And now, all over the world, it's illegal, and it's definitely frowned upon, even places that it's still going on. But we've changed so much. When it comes to the human race, like you said.
Yeah. Well, it's a profoundly anti-human point of view, but it fits perfectly with the kind of policy that that makes up Bidenomics. He wants to have good union jobs, but he doesn't want to acknowledge where those jobs come from, and he wants to have the wealthy pay their fair share, but he doesn't understand how wealth is generated, right? And this isn't an unintentional misunderstanding. This is an ideological rewriting of sort of the foundational character of some of the most important parts of what's made this country amazing to be a part of, even if it's not perfect, right? And people will say amazing, and scoff at that, but like in a lot of ways, what we had here before all of this shit, pardon my French, was something truly unique, and it was that people could come up with their own ideas and then try to change the world. They could remake the way that we did things, and it can be done without permission. And blockchain was built to save that, and that's why I joined it. But when I found out about it, I joined it because I saw that eroding over the course of my life. Starting at I first think I noticed it in like 1999 when I was driving around my small town in western Kansas with a friend, and they're like, you remember how like 5 or 6 years ago there used to be parties, and now all the kids actually behave and don't do exactly as they're told, and go to bed at 9 on Saturday night instead of finding a house they could raid and staying up until 3 and causing trouble.
Going out in the middle of the field and setting a bonfire.
Right. We need troublemakers again, is sort of what I've always thought. And when I saw this opportunity to make trouble in a way that could not be stopped, I was like, well, here's where I must be. Right. And I feel like that's keenly understood by them, by the people running this show at the SEC. I think they understand exactly what they're trying to kill.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, I really wish that I could go back in time, and I would go to school for philosophy. I think it's like I told Lisa, I think it's the most important science there is, because it is what questions. I think science comes from philosophy. Anyway, I think part of that, and what you mentioned about kids not interacting with each other, that's how we learn to be human. Humans create communities. We have a desire and a need, and I mean, I guess it stemmed from life being harsh and living in caves or whatever. We had a better chance if we came together, and you can look at it more, macro and huge, and about getting along with countries and how people can pit each other against each other and control them easier. But I think that was a big part of youth, is learning. And you can look at Mean Girls and cliques, but I think that was part of us learning to create communities, to create tribes, to create.
Well, and what do you guys think American communities are? What do you think the character of American communities are that make them different, that make them special?
I think it was support. Like, I remember years ago when I realized it changed, I was making something. I was like, oh, I forgot to get sugar. It's like, oh, we can just go borrow a cup from the neighbor or something. And my kids looked at me, and one of them said, "Are you insane?" And I was like, "No, what are you talking about?" Like, we're not going to go next door and ask them for sugar. I was like, "Why?" He said, "Because they hate us." I was like, "Why do they hate us?" They're like, "I don't know. Why do you think they hate us?" Wouldn't you? They had no idea. They had no reasoning. They just were like in fear of the people next door, and that's the way people are now. It's very weird.
So I have a little bit different answer. I would say it's accountability, because like as a kid who moved around a lot, when we would move, I could reinvent myself, and I had no history or past with these new people, but they had a past together. And in smaller communities, especially, there's an accountability. There's your mom is going to find out about that. There's a obligation to build reputation, to hold up to a higher standard. All of that kind of stuff leads to growing the community together. I think about like smaller countries like Finland, things like that, where there is more accountability because and the country is a little more healthy because there is the accountability. And in a smaller community, when we can govern locally, and our they leaders, if you want to call them that, aren't off in Washington where they don't have to walk the streets and see the people that they govern every day, and they can not show up for the vote and not be held accountable and do things behind their back and whatever. And instead of they're sitting in the church pew next to you and you can tap them on the shoulder and say, that's not what I asked you to say, when you were up there supposed to be representing me, and that's what I think is the strength of American communities. And that's what I think we're missing and we need to get back to.
Yeah. And on the other side of that, Lisa, I would add that in order to have accountability, you first must have something to be accountable for, right? For it to be a meaningful concept. And I think that for me, the thing that makes American communities in that sense that we've lost is the way that we actually have a more balanced love-hate relationship with nonconformity, right? There's accountability for nonconformity in the sense that it can ostracize you if you do something that is absolutely off the map and it doesn't later come up with some kind of benefit. People will know you as the crazy guy
but you can also,
but we tolerate the crazy guy doing his thing. We don't try to meddle.
There's also the benefit of you could start a trend. People could be like, wait a minute, you put your chocolate in your peanut butter?
Right.
Yeah. And then, oh, that's delicious. You know what I mean? It's not judgmental, but if I think going along with what Lisa said about accountability, that's like what I said, it's support. Everything comes down to that support. I know that if my kids are acting up and my friend sees it, I know he's going to make them accountable.
Yeah.
I know if I see my friend picking on some kid, I'd be like, hey, quit being a little shit. Your dad would probably want me to spank you right here in front of your friend. But if I'm definitely going to tell him he's going to beat your ass when you get home. I mean, that doesn't happen nowadays. There's no way. And like Lisa said, talking about small towns, I watched this news. It was like last week. It was in, I think, Philly or somewhere. It was a city, but it's like the residential part. And there was just a bunch of kids from out of school, but there were like maybe 30 kids. And they were just going the street and making a car stop and then beating the crap out of the car and getting in and kicking it. And people were just filming it. Cars were trying to get away. It was just barbaric, and I thought there's no way that would happen. When I was a kid, if you did anything and anyone saw you, if that nosy neighbor, she's on the phone, man, calling your parents.
Right.
I just saw your son throwing rocks at a car or what. It wouldn't. Yeah. No way it's gonna happen.
Right. And now people sort of abdicate that to an overbearing government that's sort of like everybody's parent figure, right?
Yeah.
And that's I think that is sort of the core of the problem with this NFT thing. To bring it back to this impact NFT, this is the SEC continuing to stick its nose where it does not belong. And it shouldn't have the authority to even begin this case, let alone pass judgment on it. It doesn't have the constitutional authority. It doesn't have the congressional authority. The SEC is not supposed to be messing with tech. It is meant to deal with investment contracts. And what it's doing right now is the same thing it's been doing since it first stuck its Warren's anti-crypto army nose into our space. It needs to pull back and it needs to stay out of this stuff. And what it's doing right now is illegitimate in the same way that arresting your most likely strongest competitor in an upcoming election is illegitimate. To me, that's my new take on the SEC. I'm not even going to bless their pretense at law and lawfulness with anything more than dismissal, because it's not on the level and we should stop treating it like it is.
3 things: protecting investors, maintaining fair, orderly, and efficient markets. No, that's what they failed, or they're failing. And then
I love that 1920s socialist idea of orderly markets, right?
Facilitating capital formation. Provides companies and entrepreneurs with a variety of avenues to access the U.S. economy's capital markets and help them create jobs. develop life-changing innovations and technology and provide financial opportunities for those who invest in them.
They're doing the exact opposite.
And that's the point. It's gotten
Yeah.
so bad that it's not just you're lazy or you're doing a terrible job. You're doing the opposite of what you're supposed to.
Yep. Okay. Well, I wanted to share with you guys a clip that I know probably, Sean, you'll love too, because I know you love this one, but you probably love this one as much as I do. But Lisa, I don't know if you've ever seen Serenity. I don't know if anybody in this audience has ever seen Serenity. It's the movie version of Firefly. I think there's a scene that's apropos to this discussion. Can you pull that up real quick? Sweet. Let's see. I guess I can't click on it in the video screen. I have to go over here and click on it. There we go.
Are dangers on the outer planets. So
Can we
with
get
so many
sound?
social and medical advancements we can bring to the independents,
We don't get sound.
why
do
would
we?
they fight
I
so
hear
hard
it.
against us?
Oh, okay.
Metal.
River?
People don't like to be meddled with. We tell them what to do, what to think. Don't run, don't walk. We're in their homes and in their heads, and we haven't the right.
We're in their homes, we're in their heads, and we haven't the right. I think that sums it up.
It is so apropos, man. You know, who created the reverse? Spoiler alert.
Right.
It was the government. Yeah.
Indeed. Yep. And they would probably see it the way that they didn't let the teacher retaliate in that dream she had right there. Yeah. We're not trying to tell people what to think or tell people how to think. We're trying to teach them how. Probably what they think of themselves. But in any case, I think we should move on to the next question because I think this was a great discussion we should cap off here. All right, so we've got revanchist, revankist. I'm not sure how you would like to pronounce that, but the question is, can you explain how Ethereum mining works now since they've switched to staking? I understand the premise, but I'm curious about the mechanics and how it's different from traditional mining. Okay.
Oh, I'll go first. No,
okay,
I'm just
go ahead.
I'm totally kidding. I have no idea.
John, do you want to take a swipe at it, or do you want me to?
Well, I think it's kind of
first?
interesting. I have a friend who's always been Mr. Ethereum for years. Smartest guy, one of the smartest guys I know.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
It's up to you. It's up to you, Greg.
Okay. Well, hopefully
He
we'll
might
give Sean
pop
a
back
second to
in.
come back.
Yeah.
Let's give him
No,
until.
it
20
was
seconds
all I understood is that they went from proof of work to proof of staking, which to me meant they held it in a wallet.
Here we go, Sean. Where you were saying we didn't move the conversation forward. Go ahead.
Really smart guy. That my friend of mine, and he had a lot of Ethereum nodes. Like 20, 30 Ethereum nodes. He was Mr. Ethereum from the get-go. And he's a developer, like I said, super smart guy. And I talked to him the other day and I asked him about his Ethereum nodes, and he said, I got rid of them all. And he said they were too much of a pain in the butt. They constantly were going down. And also you have to have perfect internet. If there's any kind of problem, everything gets shut down. It's basically like a job. That's one thing about
that's
proof of work.
really what Rivet does, man. So
Proof of work mining, I mean, you plug it in and you definitely hear it, but that's it. It's done. You check it every now and then. I mean, there's some things that can knock it offline or whatever, but it's kind of much more simple. The way he was explaining it, the Ethereum nodes are, it's not just like, hey, stake it and you're good. So I think it's in its infancy right now. So Greg would be a lot better to explain this.
So Ethereum proof of stake mining sits kind of weirdly at the intersection of the beacon chain and the settlement chain, right? So part of what they did with the merge was make the beacon chain the source of coordinated truth for the whole network, rather than the state of the network as described by the shared copy of the database that the traditional miners would come up with. The beacon chain was meant to coordinate time, right? So the timing of things was orderly and followed a rule that we could all agree on. So these, essentially miners, rather than doing all of the sort of nonce guessing. So essentially, the way traditional mining works at its core is you have a transaction block or a block of transactions that you build, and then that transaction block or that block of transaction is a nonce, and that nonce, when you hash it through the appropriate blockchain algorithm, comes out with a block that has a certain number of leading zeros in front of the hash, right? And that's the difficulty, right? It tries to guess through trying random nonces until it gets one, the appropriate number of leading zeros to have a valid block, and then it submits it to the network. And if it's the first one or the one that wins propagating across the network, if there are multiples that sort of come on at the same time, that one ends up being the block that the proof of work system decides by consensus is the next block in the chain, right? And it adds it to the blockchain, and we move forward. Merry good times, right? So the proof of stake system is very, very similar, except for it gets some of the data that it needs in order to assemble the next block in the chain on the settlement side from the beacon chain. And it takes all of this and with the specialized software they created for the staking validators, tells you what the next block in the chain is once it propagates. But the way that it essentially works is, in order to get into the staking pool for staking your validator, you have to take 32 ETH, and you have to go through the staking software that they created, and send this ETH and lock it up. And it's a lot sort of like, when you bridge assets across chains, how you have to, in the custodial one, send the tokens and they lock up, and then you get back on the other chain that you're trying to go to some kind of signal that says, okay, we validated this. These are locked up here on this chain. Now we're going to send you back these other tokens. Very similar deal with ETH staking, right? So you'll get back some kind of stETH, which, depending on the validator, can be flavored differently, but that's basically what you get. And the rough idea is, if there's a bad actor on the network, somebody's corrupted their software and is submitting bad proofs to try to mess with the network, then the stake will get slashed, and that 32 ETH will go poof and be gone. And that is essentially the way that they, rather than having this huge computational guesswork mechanism as the way that you secure the network, you secure it on the idea that people who are staking don't want to lose their money. And that's really the core of it.
That's probably
I don't know if that was the level of detail that you wanted to get into. If it's not as detailed as you want it to be, I'm sorry.
On that, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Divi have changed.
Mm-hmm.
They were like they were probably the most popular staking node that there was, or proof of stake. It was very simple. There was different levels. You had like copper, silver, gold, diamond, platinum, diamond. But they now, me and a friend of mine were looking, just, hey, what's going on with the Divi nodes? And there was only 4 nodes. We're like, what the heck is so then we looked, they just switched over to a new system, and it's still proof of stake, but it's a vault proof of stake.
Okay. So it's like a single pool of.
I was actually explaining it. Plus, you got to pay them $100 a month in order to be allowed to go into the stake in the vault.
Interesting. So there's like a brokerage fee. That sounds oddly centralized, but
that's what I thought too. So I have no idea the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
So.
One really interesting way I've heard people describe staking, especially on ETH, is that it's a lot like the bond market is to the US dollar in the fiat system. Because the more staking that is going on, the more sort of undergirding stability you have in sort of the assets that benchmark the rest of the Ethereum economy. And people will prefer a bond investment in the fiat system, right, over any other any other investment when things are bad. It's like the ultimate last resort stability investment. So it sets sort of a bottom line baseline for if you want to have, the best possible, most secure form of basic return. That's where you go. And staking is a similar mechanism, I think, for Ethereum. There are some other nuances of it that we can get into, some of the hot debates around it that I'm not really that versed in, but I want to point you guys towards them anyway, to think about. Like, some of the debates are like, what percentage of the overall circulating supply of Ethereum ought to be staked at any given point in time? Should there be a top end that's allowed? Should we limit because like getting into the staking system takes time and getting out takes time. There's a line. You have to wait until you're permitted to add more validators. There are technical rules that say you can't just spin one up willy-nilly. And when you take one out, there's a process too, right? So you can't just flood all of the ETH in the system into the staking system. It would just queue up, right? Until we actually need to add more validators according to the rules of the network, because they want an exact ratio of security. So there are politics around what should that ratio be, and that's another interesting factor of it. It's sort of like decentralized management in the same way the Fed manages the interest rates on bonds. But decentralized is what's centralized, right, across all of the stakers. So anyway, that's kind of a weird aside, but I don't know if that will send you down some rabbit holes. I hope it does. If you want to know technically how it works precisely, I'm not the guy to ask, but I can probably point you towards some. So if you guys want to know more detail how this works, or you want to correct me on my precision, because I'm sure I said some things that would make a developer who understands this cringe and slap me if they were hearing me say it to their face, we can do that. So just let me know and I'll hook you up with somebody who knows this inside and out. You guys want to hit the next one?
Yeah.
All right.
Cracks me.
Oh my God. I am asked us an old fart question. What are the attack vectors for decentralized systems, and what are good defensive strategies to thwart those attacks? Yeah, that is a denigrating way to describe your question, sir, because I think that is a security question that deserves more than being classified as old fart. It's a new fart. It's what it smells like. So,
fresh farts.
Yeah. So what do you guys? Let's just go down the list. Lisa, you go first. What do you think of this?
Oh my gosh! I mean, you could go so many directions. It's pretty broad. Because there are strengths in some points of centralization. It just depends on the project, really, don't you think? I mean,
well, there's certainly a lot of variable in the projects. I think that that's always the first point of analysis, right? When you're talking about a traditional security. Are you guys familiar with traditional sort of security thinking when it comes to attack surfaces and vectors and things like that?
I think a lot of it is the same as anything. A lot of principles of phishing is phishing. Certain attacks are just going to be the same. They just change like how they do it, but it's basically the same kind of thing.
Right.
So it just
that's
that classic good security, and it's one of the best places to start.
Right. Endpoint security is really big, right, Sean? That's a really good example. So just for folks who are not who are listening and who are not grounded in sort of like traditional, I'm sure he called this old fart question because this is like old school security analysis thinking, where you analyze your attack surface for what you're trying to defend, given different attack vectors that a given arbitrary adversary might take, right? So you think in terms of what your adversary might do to attack your exposed attack surfaces. So you start with my attack surfaces for this type of system are here, here, and here. So for decentralized systems, right, there are a ton of advantages in terms of the complexity of trying to find a decent attack surface that can hurt the whole network, right? Because in a peer-to-peer system, you might be able to hurt one peer, but it's a lot harder to hurt every peer. And you have to corrupt a certain number of peers in a decentralized system in order to undermine its purpose. Because if you take one node out on any given blockchain, all you're doing is taking out that node. You're not actually making the network fail. And so like that's our system. And then our attack vectors are all the ways that you can attack it viably, right? And then our adversaries are the types of people who can execute those attacks. And the goal of the whole security analysis is to say, here are ways we can drive up the costs on adversaries such that this attack vector is now either mitigated or entirely untenable, right? And the whole concept behind blockchains was sort of meant to handle the lion's share of those attacks. I think if we wanted to get into the really technical ones, we could start talking about like hashing power attacks, where a network that doesn't have, like a proof of work network that doesn't have a lot of hashing power, can be overwhelmed by somebody who does a lot of processing offline and then dumps all of the
so like the younger projects, the early starting projects, until
Right.
that's why, until you get to like, that's where, until Bitcoin got to a certain hash or whatever, it was at a risk.
Right.
And then after that, it just would be it would be better to just go buy some Bitcoin than try to.
Right. Well, are you guys familiar with chain reorganizations at all?
No.
Okay, so did you know that you can still technically go on and propose a block from like, 200, 2000, however many blocks ago? Well, they have finality points, but where you can't go back any further. But you can propose an old block and reset the network by giving that block more weight in the consensus algorithm by loading up the hashing power, like I was talking about. You can like literally mine a separate blockchain in a little side firewalled off box, get it up to current with the network, where you get to that sort of finality block limit where you can go back this number of blocks and still potentially undermine the chain with this split. And you can dump your version of that block onto the network and say, oh no, we need to do a massive chain reorg. We're going to erase the last 200 blocks and replace it with this one at this point in the blockchain and move forward from there in my version of it. And if you look at, like, for instance, the Ethereum Classic blockchain, when it got targeted by a 51%, this is what a 51% attack looks like, right? You can see this happening in the example, like back in 2019 when they got attacked. And we actually helped them test their solution, which was to reweight how the consensus algorithm decided finality of past blocks. And what we did was we changed it so that that over time, the network started to prefer older blocks more aggressively than newer ones by discounting how much it took into account, proposing older blocks to reorg it. And it made it basically really hyper expensive to find the compute power to do that. And it solved their problem at the time. Now they recently phased that fix out because they changed the fundamental nature of how Ethereum Classic does validation for the better and got rid of that problem. But that's one example of sort of some of the technical ways you can attack. But there are other attack vectors like government, right? Like back to the SEC. What do you guys think? Do you think that's a pretty good attack vector on a decentralized system? What's been going on with the SEC and with the policy towards blockchain?
Definitely.
I mean, if they hadn't been doing it, do you guys think we'd probably have more adoption and prices would be better and the system would be growing faster?
Yeah, there'd be a lot less fear.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think the community would have not governed, but self-regulated and come up with ways to bring some clarity within the community itself, and said, like, we acknowledge this path, or this is okay because of the, the accountability within the community. Like, you would see projects thrive and the community would go that way, and other things would fall off because they didn't have integrity or didn't, I mean, we've seen things like that happen, where people are like, call out a scam, and
So we might call this an attack on the prerequisites for trust that aren't systemic, right? Like, in order for people to trust, they have to have some fundamental security in what they're doing. And while the blockchain can provide that in the sense that you can trust individual transactions to be in blocks and for that to not be monkeyed with, another way you can undermine that trust is by making people afraid of using it.
Right.
Yeah, I think a big point is just government in general. The average person trusts it less, no matter what it is. I mean, this food is safe. Your water is safe. That's why there's bottled water everywhere. No one trusts their own water. I mean, that's the most
their own drinking water.
Yeah. Growing up, it's like, what was that? We learned about it in school. It's like it was a can. They sold stuff. It was a can of chicken, but it was like rat guts and poop.
What?
There were someone wrote it, like this newspaper broke this story because there was no regulation on food in the United States.
Right.
You could slap anything on it was this chicken, and just put whatever in there. You could lie about it.
Right. Well, now you have to certify that there's under a percentage of rat guts in soup, right?
But that's what started the FDA,
right?
And started these laws got passed.
Because we're from the government and we're here to help.
Which they were, though. But see, that's the thing.
They'll check the parts per million of rat guts in your soup for you.
Things start out with good intentions, and then, like everything else, as they get more authority, more power, the people involved. Their corruption is bred, and now you have the medical system where I have to pay $600 for one prescription, but that same prescription, that company will make money when it's a generic, selling it for $9. They'll make money at $9, but they're allowed to sell it for 3 years, 5 years, for $600.
Yeah,
only in the United States, but it's so obvious the system is messed up, all systems. And when it comes to the SEC, it's just that regular people didn't have to deal with it that much.
Yeah.
Because they designed it that way. It's, only qualified, and it's only, the elite few. And, but I think in this time in history, all government is not trusted like it was even 10 years ago.
Right. Well, Lisa, you worked with Jeff Den.Social on that amicus brief for Ripple, or in defense of Ripple token holders, right?
DAO. With the very DAO for token holders in the secondary market.
Right. And what was the big issue there? Like what made that so dangerous for those people who were being sort of part of the collateral damage, right?
Yeah, that the SEC had actually caused harm to us by their actions, because as token holders in the secondary market, well, there were several issues. I mean, oh gosh, we could go back through the whole thing, but when they went after Reggie, they mentioned the tokens 150 times in their application or their complaint against Reggie. But when they settled with him, there were no charges, or he wasn't actually found guilty of anything. He and the SEC settled. When they settled, the token was not mentioned a single time. And then to further that, they set up what's called the Very Fair Fund, which they did not pay out a single dollar for over 3 years. They just only recently started paying some out to people. But even at that point in time, when they had an opportunity to remove the tokens from the market, which they said were this scary security, they did not require the tokens to be turned back in. So they left this wild, dangerous animal out in the wild, for the community to be harmed by it. Well, that actually caused harm to us because
they
them
stripped
putting
it of its
all of
underlying wealth and then left it in your hands.
right, and them making all these accusations that then were not validated or founded caused us as token holders, and they won't give us clarity. We have been asked for an NAL letter, and didn't get a response.
Right.
A denied response on an NAL letter. So we're standing here with our tokens, and we've been harmed. Now,
Right.
There's warnings up on Coin, which we got the Coin Gecko warning removed, but there's one up on Coin Market Cap, all these others, and so we're standing here with our tokens, and we've actually been harmed by the SEC's actions.
Right. They have engaged in the construction of an individual targeting engine, starting by saying these tokens could be suspect, and if you even move them, you might be engaging in a securities transaction that could get you arrested.
And how hard they had to work to get the Surgeon General warning on a pack of cigarettes.
Right. Oh, yeah.
How much proof they had to give. But when it comes to, like this, it's, the warning label goes right on. Well,
and when you look at it,
Greg, I got a question I want to ask you about the current events with what they're doing on something else.
We got 5 more minutes on questions, and we got current events, so we can jump into it if you don't mind holding on to it. Try to get through more questions. The one point I wanted to hit with this real fast is that attack vector is an attack vector on the whole chain, because if you watch one project get rugged, you're going to be unlikely, as a person who knows the SEC is out to get crypto, to pick up a new project, because you think if lightning strikes and the SEC goes after the thing that I just put my heart and soul into and put my wealth into, this project could end up just like VeriDAO or just like Ripple and have all of the wealth sucked out of it, and I'm left holding this valueless thing.
Now that they went after NFTs, I mean, that makes the whole NFT market a target. At least in the US. But to Brad Garlinghouse's comment, I believe it was Brad Garlinghouse, he said, I remember them asking him, what happens if Ripple loses? And he said, we don't care. We keep going. We just, America loses. And that's the real crime, is that the SEC is harming America by their actions.
And I would take it a step
I'm not
further.
a lawyer. I want to also.
Lisa, and I would take it a step further than that. By harming America, you harm the last place where this kind of innovation can happen as safely as possible.
Exactly.
Right. You actually deprive it of humanity.
And in the largest markets in the world.
If the United States isn't leading it, name me a company besides Spotify, right, that has made a modern tech company that people depend on that didn't start here. Right. And Spotify hired an ass load of U.S. expertise to succeed.
It's a good question to end on.
Yeah.
It kind of wraps it back to what we've been talking about the whole time.
Yeah.
Yep. So Derek says, question, vocabulary. In articles and videos about crypto, very often there are sentences, I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice, DYOR. How to phrase the message so as not to expose myself to problems. Is it good to say that you can earn crypto, or rather that you receive crypto? What do you think of these videos that predict the price? Is it legal to speculate, almost promising potential investors that if they buy now, they will earn 10x in the future? How to ensure safety in creating material about cryptocurrencies? I would say, just for starters, that those disclaimers mean just about as much as the disclaimers in the footer of an email that says, if you're not an intended recipient, you have to send this back and destroy it. It doesn't really protect you if they decide to come after you. I actually don't even say things like that because I know that if they're going to come after me, they're going to come after me anyway, and that's not going to save me. They're not going to look, oh, well, he said not financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Do your own research. I'm going to pass this one over and go to somebody who didn't say that. There's no magic incantation to escape liability. The key is not to create investment contracts, right?
Well, there's different. Okay, so this is always weird for me because I technically am a financial advisor. I would always say I'm not your financial advisor. And if I was on a show and people were like, well, we're not financial advisors, I'm like, well, but the statement is important. It does protect you in some ways. if you were, there's things like liability insurance you can get, omission insurance. There's other things, but if you're not, it's important to say that.
Mm-hmm.
But like Greg said, in the America that it was and it's supposed to be, you could say, this is what I'm doing. This is what I've researched. This is my technical analysis, and this is what I think it's going to do.
Right.
And why I put into it. And that's it. It's just information.
Yes.
If that's how you word it, say this is just information, and this is what I'm doing. Right. And that's where, if you're,
this is why I like it.
When I first got
a statement that could be separate.
The reason why I started my YouTube channel is because I didn't know people got paid to talk about stuff. I didn't know that everyone was getting paid by Neo. I just thought every YouTuber was a Neo fanboy. And that's all they talked about. This is all they talked about. And I was like, there's all these really cool projects doing this awesome stuff. So my first video was on Space Chain and how they developed a rocket operating system. How they're putting these mini satellites up where anyone could afford to have a satellite. They did this like a revolutionary thing where it's like
those were those CubeSats. Those were so cool.
It's like putting a satellite, but it's like a smartphone. So you don't have to buy a satellite and launch it. You just have to develop an app.
Right.
So
it's ride share for
your app
space experiments.
Phone. It can't infect other people on the phone or on the apps. It's localized.
Yeah.
So it was like, I thought that was my first video that I ever did, because no one was talking about all these things. I didn't know it's because, there's all these people are just getting paid. And that's what you have to look for. If someone says, this is what I'm doing, this is what I think, it's a lot different than, I'm not really doing this, I'm just talking about it, they paid me to talk about it. But if you are saying this is what I think and this is what I'm doing, because I would show people this is what I'm putting money into. This is what, and I could say, look, I've doubled my money. Look, I've 10x'd. Or, he's talking about that you will 10x. You can say, I think this is going to 10x. This happens, and I can compare this to this similar project that 10x'd. And I think that this one is better because we're doing this, and this.
Yeah.
So logically, I could think this one did this. This is better. So I think it's going to, outpace that, or at least do that. So it's you have to make it more personal, and talk, and also just say it's just information.
Yep. Well, and technically everything that you say about the future is speculation, right? There's no such thing as talking about what might happen tomorrow in a way that is certain. That's just the nature of.
But it kind of goes back to like the anarchy book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was like where the government could say, stat information is dangerous.
Yeah. Now, this is not legal advice because there's a legal disclaimer, right? But if you wanted to have the best
financial
chance,
disclaimers, but definitely legal.
If I personally were to want to give advice about future price movements to people by sharing my opinion so that they could take it into account when they deal with their own thing, their own way, after having looked up everything about it themselves, right? I would probably do a whole video on what I mean when I say do your own research, what this means, and then refer back to it at the beginning of every other video that you make. And really try to say it uniquely and strongly. Never let it turn into a magical incantation, right? Never let it be, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. DYOR. Okay, let's go. Take a good solid 5 minutes and say, hey, we have to talk about this because I don't want anybody to think that what I'm telling you is going to happen. That's not the truth. But, to go into this in more detail, I've linked first to the bottom of this video that I want everybody to watch. Every time I bring up my show, I say it, go look at this video, because we're going to talk about what doing your own research means. And it's really important, and I can't stress it enough. And then at the very end, of the video point back to it again, and maybe show clips from it every once in a while when you have a chance to make a salient point. The more that you integrate like real conversation about what do your own research means, the less likely anyone is to be able to make a firm, ugly case against you when it comes to come trying to attack you by saying that you're acting as an unlicensed financial advisor. So you can definitely do it. You just have to never let it turn into a bromide, never let it turn into a thing that you try to whisper in order to keep the boogeyman away. It has to be, thoughtful and intentional and upfront. That's what I would say.
Sincere. That's what I was going to say. Like when you're doing when you're doing a paid promotion, you need to be honest and upfront, and it should be stated that this is a paid promotion, and that way people can have that in their mind. Okay, he is getting paid for this, but he believes in this, or she believes in this. You know what I mean?
Or you don't.
Because you can have both. Or you can say you don't. Yeah, you can say I'm getting paid. I got paid to evaluate this, and it's crap.
I got paid to read this.
I don't know.
30-page white paper. I got paid to look at this. This is my opinion.
Right. You never know. But it's. I think that is important to disclose that if it is a paid promotion. But then if you are just giving your opinion, it's your opinion, and other people have to take personal responsibility. We need to be able to have conversations and go to the community and say, what does somebody think about something? And then say, okay, Sean thinks this about this project. Greg thinks this about this project. Now I'm going to put those two things together. And what do I think about this project? And then I'm going to make my own decisions.
Yep.
And all of those conversations should happen. But ultimately, when I push the button, it's my decision to push the button.
And
I have to take
that. Hey guys, we should do a DYOR episode. We should propose that as a topic.
That would be good.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
When people get paid to promote, that the truth goes out the window. It's not always the case. That's where the person is what's important. Are they are they moral? Do you trust them? Do they care enough about their own community to not do what you're talking about? I've had a lot of projects where they're like, hey, review our project and we'll give you money.
I just don't.
And I'm like, okay, well, give me half up front. And then I do it, and then they want to look at it, and they're like, oh, you said this and these negatives. And I was like, yeah, because these are negatives, this is my opinion on it. And they're like, well, we don't want this. And I was like, okay. And that I don't get the other half. They never give me the other half. So they don't really pay you for your opinion in most cases. If it's really bad, like there's been some cases where I would still put the video out because I'm like, this is a scam. These people are going to take your money. The one was one I did snowball mining. It was like at the beginning of like the cloud mining kind of thing. And I was like, no. I said, their offices are here where they can't get in trouble for doing it. But then they say that the place itself is over here in this country. So this is just a red flag, but everything is set up so that they could basically, if this is a scam, nobody gets in trouble because they're like, here, these are the people involved. That were like showing the people. And that was what, they were saying, oh no, it's, we're not hiding who we are. I'm like, yeah, but your offices and these things are in this country where you can't get in trouble. For what you're doing. And then, so anyway, it was right. Like 6 months later, they stole everyone's money.
Yeah. Well, and always remember, like, I put this in the chat too, but always remember the H.L. Mencken quote. If anyone says it's not about the money, it's about the money. Yeah. So like, hear that as a red flag, right? If someone's not being upfront with you about the fact that this is about money. And really preface that with, so this isn't about the money, guys. This is about, and they're pumping something. Yeah, it's about the money.
Another good thing, my buddy Keith Waring. One thing that I've loved about his, and he's been on YouTube a long time, is that he talks about stuff, but he's in it, and he has promoted some shit. I mean, some like big scams. But he got scammed. Titanium. I don't know if y'all remember that. the SEC actually and the DOJ raided them, because but he lost like millions of dollars. And if your community is like, hey man, I lost $800 with this project, like, yeah, I lost 40,000. I'm a little worried about things. But that's why you have to be, like Lisa said, upfront, and you have to. I mean, it's something that you're talking about something, and people are following you for your advice. You can say it's not financial advice, but people are trusting in your talents and your ability.
Right.
And if you win, they want to do it's like copy trading. It's basically the same thing.
Well, there's a reason behind the fact that the SEC blocks off qualified investors from certain types of investments, and those also include like startups, right? Like you couldn't get into Google when it was being run out of a garage. There was just no way. People that did that had to be qualified investors, right? The idea is kind of valid with respect to crypto, but I think there's a piece that gets missed because we've so locked ourselves into the retail model of investing when we think about it. But in venture capital, the idea is not never put in more than you can afford to lose. That's an unspoken rule that flows from the idea that you are going to lose 90% of the time. You are going to pick wrong ponies. And the only way that you can make money at it is to cordon off your budget for investing, everything you can afford to lose, without having to go broke or not be able to eat, but also everything within the bounds of all of the investments you want to make. You need to make that determination holistically. So I want to go into these projects and I want to buy tokens, right? And you get excited about one project and you put everything you can afford to lose into that. You just blew your entire dry powder, right? Like you can't do it again if you're in one like that. So the smart way to do it is to think about it in terms of, or what I like to think about it in terms of, is venture capital. I like to take my investment pool and think about it like, okay, I'm going to make 100 investments and 10 of them are going to be winners. Let's divide up what I can put into any given project and then take that from my pool. Right. So I think the mistake a lot of people make is they go into one token and they follow the I can afford to lose this rule, but then they forget next week and they go into another project and they double spend that money.
Also, a good point that I think people don't really think about is just because you can afford to lose it doesn't mean you should lose it.
Yeah.
Or you should. It's still, you want to win.
Right. But if you can't put money in, without thinking, well, that was fun, I just spent this on something that I'm never getting back.
Yeah, then people treat all investing kind of like lottery tickets. Like, I don't think I'm going to win, but it was fun. I had fun scratching it. If a friend of mine said this, Crypto Bitcoin Chris, it's like if you're just learning how to trade and you're leverage trading or whatever, if you have $2,000 that you can afford to lose, don't trade with $2,000.
Right.
Don't trade with any more than $100 until you're winning.
Right.
Until you know what you're doing, because there's no point.
Right. And my additional suggestion on top of that, Sean, is to take that $100 and split it up into tranches of $10 a piece.
Yeah.
And go into 10 different projects with it.
Go into as little as you can until you know.
Yeah.
You're sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the outcome.
But keep in mind in startup investing,
you're 100% sure of your ability and what you've learned.
Yeah.
Until you're sure about that, then don't mess with it, man.
Right. But keep in mind that in startup investing, right? Like if Rivet goes under and our investors don't get a dime back of what they put into it, they don't say, you jerk, jail time. They say, oh, that sucks, man. But you ran a great project. It was a good try. We like working with you. Hit us up if you have another idea. And they will, like, as long as you do your best to take care of their interests, even if you lose it all, you're forgiven and you get another bite at the apple. So that's the other thing. Like when you're dealing with the founders of these projects, don't think of them like you're dealing with a freaking Walmart, right? This is not a publicly traded company. They are not held to a standard of if they lose it all, they've done something. If
they're genuine,
right? Because if they're trying to do something to begin with, they are still 90% likely to lose it all. Right? Like at that level of the business, you are 90% likely to just fail, even if it's a great idea.
Sometimes you can do everything right and still fail.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what you're getting into when you get into tokens. You're getting into these ideas that could be perfect and beautiful and wonderful and amazing, and everything that was said about them that got you excited was true, and then it still fails, right? Like, and I think a lot of times people who are used to retail investing are thinking in terms of more like publicly traded securities investment protection guarantees, which is not the same thing. Like the investors still get paid if the company goes under, and CEOs will go to jail if they don't. And that's not what happens in speculative ventures like crypto token startups.
But does anyone go to jail anymore except the good guys? Because right now all I see is J6ers in jail, right, and I see SBF walking around like he owns the world still. I was even in my personal life, it's that way.
Lisa, so I was hypothetically playing a game where we were back in a normal, sane world, not run by corrupt people.
Well, that brings me to what I wanted to ask Rick. So let's wrap it.
Yeah, should we move on to current events? You guys ready?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay. As of now, it is current events time. Thank you guys for the questions. They were awesome. If you guys want to talk about them more, you know where to find us.
So
okay, go ahead,
here's what I don't know if you know what's going on.
Wait. Don't we do like a wrap, a close, like a little screen?
I think we only do that when we have our official host.
Oh.
I thought you were the host.
Okay. Do we have a video to play?
I thought you were the host.
Do we have a video to play? Can we play a video?
We go, bye, peace out.
Bye.
We do do you have anything to promote, whatever?
Oh, okay.
It's Greg style.
We're going old school. We're going
freestyle.
Old school World Blockchain Roundtable. If you rewind to the early episodes, then all that happens at the end of the amalgamated mash of questions and current events, which is
I like it.
So Binance, the SEC just filed stuff against Binance, but they get it closed.
What does that mean?
That means that it's not public. It's all, nobody knows what they're doing, what it's all about. It's the SEC is a civil, it's not a criminal organization, it's a civil organization.
Well, that's debatable.
So it's very odd. So there's a lot of speculation, and this goes back to the spreading FUD. Mm-hmm. But the main reason to do that is because if they were to be public with their civil stuff, it would show criminal investigations from like the DOJ or someone else. So that's why they're doing it a closed filing.
Right. And that's actually really hard to meet the threshold for unless you're the government. I'm assuming they filed in Eastern District of New York, where they always file, or maybe they filed in.
I don't know, but it's very. In the reading I read about it, it's very, really very weird, very odd.
About it. But yeah, that's you. Keeping a petition sealed and unpublic in a civil filing requires that the judge grant a pre-filing motion, and that you have to be able to go talk to the judge in order to get that. That's not something regular attorneys who are plaintiffs in civil suits get to do. That's something that Gary Gensler can do if he knows what he's trying to accomplish, right? And what they're probably trying to do is not create precedent. They don't want to talk about the fact that they're talking about Ripple. Because they probably have some new theory, and they don't want to give the good people like John Deaton the opportunity to read it in advance.
Well, they were talking about how money laundering, criminal, all these lists of scary bad things about Binance. I think it's just it's China. They're Chinese. It's China. They're
such bullshit, man.
So, but
money laundering has never actually been anything more than a ruse to to attempt to target people who just don't want to pay taxes.
But reading the article, my first thought is, oh, Binance is going to be BNB, or it's going to be it's going to drop. Everything's, which is,
well, they just pulled the BNB token off. Like they're dismantling it, right? Did you read about that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they're. It looks like they're going to take down. It looks like the SEC is going after the network. It's the underlying network itself.
Okay, I heard rumors about that. I didn't think they were going to actually do it though.
Yeah, well, they're gonna. Right now, we're seeing, if you want my opinion, an act of desperation by this regime. It knows it's overstepped in a way that is not going to fly the next time electoral accountability becomes possible. And if that gets subverted, then they're facing a different kind of. There will be Second Amendment remedies if this goes the wrong way. Is my opinion.
Because from what I understood and what I read, is that this is a publicly funded civil agency who operates because we give them money. So they have to be transparent. They have to do things in the open so we know how our money is being spent. So that's why it's very, very odd for them to do something.
Right. Unless you're in the FISA courts, right? You can't do that. But the SEC, I think, is probably wishing they had FISA-like authority right now. And they probably have found this workaround to sort of illicitly obtain that. Would be my guess.
Well, I thought that was interesting.
It's sketchy as fuck. I can't believe that the judge actually granted that. I would be willing to bet it's because of the effectiveness of third-party interveners in the Ripple case that they are going for that.
Because the whole thing was like, oh, Ripple has this huge win for Ripple,
Yeah.
But while this is going on, they're doing Binance this way over here.
Well, the amicus filings really moved the Ripple case. Like they really moved the Ripple case, right? And if that filing had been secret, who would have been able to do that? They would not have been able to get an amicus filing in. They've shut out the outside world by doing this. And that to me is dangerous. If I were going to file an amicus on this case, which I would recommend somebody do, I would file one that targeted the closing of the file.
Could everybody in crypto do that then, as almost like a class action or a group briefing amicus, because of it, the fact of it being private?
Well, the difficulty is this concept in law called privity, where like if you're not a party to the case, intervening in the case requires that you have an interest, and because it's closed, there's no way to know what that interest is.
But if you submit it, that the judge would know.
Yeah, except for the fact that in this case, you can surmise what they're trying to do. Like, I've never credited Gary Gensler or the people that he's got running these things as operating with a whole load of creativity. They're making the same arguments they always make, probably.
Could you make the statement that if anyone who has a coin on Binance would be affected, well, then you're included.
Right, exactly.
You
and
would
what I would say is, well, you could try to make that case, and you might win or you might not. But that would mean a separate action, probably under the Administrative Procedures Act, and somebody would have to bankroll it separately.
Speaking about bankroll, you remember, a couple of years ago, it was like millions of dollars to get listed on Binance that you had to pay.
Yeah.
It was a huge investment to go to be on Binance.
But I hope
I got a doctor's appointment, so I have to head out.
Oh yeah, sure.
But I did want to say, as far as current events, that BitBoy had his channel stolen.
Yeah.
That it looks like a concerted effort, and it's a travesty from what I've seen. We talked about it on our
But
show.
the FBI is behind it. Only partially joking.
I don't know.
I don't know. I've heard people that he worked with talking about it.
Yeah.
And they were pretty devastated personally by it as well. So I don't know. I don't know the
it's something behind. He built it. I said this on our show before. I knew he put out the. He went and got a drug test. and posted the drug test all clear. So none of that's true.
Well, that doesn't mean none of it's true. That could mean at that moment in time, it's not true. I fostered and adopted for years, and I can tell you there's lots of ways to clear a test or for different drugs to be in your system for a short period of time versus a long period of time.
He went and did this the day they did it.
Right. A sophisticated adversary clearly attacked BitBoy in an organized fashion.
Yeah, and he has talked about things now where it has been ongoing.
I do think it's interesting that he went to, where did he go? The Bahamas or Virgin Islands or wherever, and he was like hardcore after SBF.
Yeah, he was.
And trying to get answers, and this followed that.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the two had anything to do with each other.
Yep.
That was a question in my mind.
Threads on this, it leads back to somebody highly placed.
It does, and there's something that me and him were talking about for the past couple months that I haven't shared with anybody. An individual that he was dealing with, and I was going to warn him about it, but he saw through it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was going to go after this person who had really screwed me. And he was talking about doing an expose and asked me if I would, talk about stuff. And literally 3 months after he started dealing with this person, all this happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, you gotta be careful who you pick fights with on the internet because you don't know who's backing them.
Yeah, you don't know who's backing them. That is true.
Yeah, and if they're being backed by like somebody from the corrupt regime, then you are barking up a tree that's going to get you.
Y'all, check out my channel. Check out me and Lisa on Tuesdays. I'm starting a new show tomorrow, I believe.
Cool. What's it about?
It's about number go up.
Oh, cool.
Worst place to talk about is here, but I'm glad Joe's not here. He would be just disgusted. But it's going to be gem hunting. Now, I mean, there's two of us, but I'm taking the approach like I used to really look at what's coming out, to look at innovation, to look at what I think is going to be something, big.
Dude, I have projects to share with you.
Yeah, we're using a platform I went over about a year or so ago called Better, and my friend didn't even know about it. And when I went over, I was like, "This is amazing! They do all the research and have everything laid out for you, and it's all done by people in the community. So and you just tip people if they it's on a what's the system called? Reputation,
Yeah.
So everyone's like it's a really, I think it's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So like reputation divorced from identity, rather than having a centralized authority tell you who is who, and therefore reputations are thereby built. Rather, it's like market-based identity.
This person has looked at 8 projects, has an average of 11x on all the different projects. So they have a really a good eye.
Yeah.
And then you just tip them. If they do all the research, they go to the AMAs, everything's updated. Or they're having an AMA next week. They go through the audits. I mean, and it's so it's cool. I always sound like I'm trying to sell better, but when I reviewed it, I was like, this is amazing. I thought I was going to start using it all the time, and I just kind of I wasn't really looking for new gems and everything the past year.
Yeah,
but
dude, awesome. I'm excited to watch your show.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be cool. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, what time is it so we can all watch? And
yeah,
is it on? What time tomorrow is it gonna be on?
It'll probably be about later evening because I'm doing it with my friend who lives in Finland.
Cool.
So
Well,
super early for him. We would try to find that time where he doesn't complain that much about getting up that early. I don't complain that much about staying up that late.
Let me know and I'll share it on my Shadow Band X account so nobody can see it.
Awesome. All right, you guys take care.
Cheers. All right.
Oh, goodness.
So, more current events. What the fuck, man? What is going on?
Well, we can talk about banking. I was there was a huge move from, I can't remember what it's called, where it's promised or pretend silver in banking to physical silver to get ready to cover their shorts. $14.2 million.
Billion
$1
sounds
billion.
like the kind of
I think
number that
it's
they
JP
are.
Morgan Chase. I think it was billion. And
Million
then
is
they
what they put in
also,
their petty cash accounts.
yeah, most likely it's probably billions. But then the banks all just went long on silver because they're thinking silver prices are going to fly. So we're right there at that kind of tipping point thing. And I'm a big Uncle Cliff fan, Cliff High, and he always said that silver would go first before crypto. And he recently did a show with Jean-Claude and Snippy and said that this winter, this Christmas is the $100,000 Bitcoin Christmas. But he said, but it's going to be a dark time for everybody. Like everybody's like, oh, yay, $100,000 Bitcoin. But it's like, oh, no, because the US dollar is worth nothing.
Right. Yeah.
Because it takes $100,000
$100,000 Bitcoin could happen if
to buy a gallon of milk.
Loses what's the current price of Bitcoin? It's around 28.
I don't even look anymore.
Something like that. So if it loses 225% of its value, the US dollar, then Bitcoin will go up to $100,000.
Just like the weirdest. Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's not going to be a pretty situation, but those of us that are listening, will be, I don't know. It's just surreal. It's really just the most bizarre time.
I don't know about you, but I've been having trouble getting any decent sized amounts of money into crypto since they took down.
Well, I don't have any money to put into crypto right now.
Yeah.
But I did hear, and this has been a trend. So in Nigeria, in which people are like, oh, Nigeria, but it's a big deal. In Australia recently, they have limited cash withdrawals. I don't know if you guys remember like the people lining up to the ATM. And I'm thinking like, how many paper bills do they think is in that little box over there? Yeah. But anyway, just recently, Wells Fargo and Truist Bank limited their cash withdrawals.
Yeah.
And tons of banks just got downgraded. Right. And then now they're limiting their cash withdrawals.
Did you see that meme too, where they're making their customers explain the withdrawals?
Yes.
The guy's like, I'm getting my anus bleached.
Yeah. Lord.
It's pretty ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
What's happening right now. Because like I actually used to get my whole pay in crypto. And I had to stop doing it because the banks that I was going through for shifting that into purchasing capability in US dollars started limiting the amount I could do that very comfortably. They started slowing down credits for like how fast you can get cash from crypto.
Oh, right.
And how fast you can get cash into and out of crypto, and how much. And then they started all of a sudden I started getting this is the security team and you have to dial this number and wait on hold before we unlock your card, like that kind of shit.
And Greg, that makes no sense because crypto happens like this, right? So it's not that they're waiting on the crypto. What are they waiting on?
Well, when they killed Signature Bank and they killed the other one, it was Signature and not Silicon Valley, but the other one in California. What was it?
SVB SVB isn't Signature, right?
No, Signature was the one in New York, and then there was one in California that also got taken down around the same time as SVB went down. Anyway, those two banks had special payment networks for the conversion of crypto assets into liquid cash. And it was like a 24-hour clearinghouse for dollar to crypto liquidity. And when they took those down, that was the piece that the SEC, or rather the FDIC, would not let Signature Bank sell off, right? The piece that made it so that you could go from cash to crypto. That was the beginning of the ring fencing, the choke point 2.0 stuff.
The choke point 2.0. Yeah, we talked about that. Mm-hmm.
So that was when I started having trouble living natively in crypto, and actually ultimately had to go back to like a credit union locally so that I could actually get in the door and they'd let me have a bank account despite the business that I was in. Right. and that's hard to do when you are a founder in something that deals in the space, right? Like they've intentionally tried to stifle its utility. So I think that we're going to see that more and more. So yeah, 100,000 Bitcoin is cool, but and it would be a great way to save yourself from the degradation of the dollar that would represent. But it, grain of salt.
But
maybe establish a relationship with a foreign bank before you start.
Well, but does it rip the bandage or force that I think about like water tension? Does it force the flood over? Do the people finally just get out of that dirty, corrupt system when it's like, it is better over there? And, we are being starved over here. Let's go over there.
Well,
I don't know.
ultimately, what it's going to do probably is make it so that institutions take advantage of all of the alpha when it does go up, right? Like you're going to see that, like for instance, one of the current events was that Grayscale was
the Bitcoin ETF
was wrongfully denied the ability to spin up that ETF. When that goes online, and they're still ring fencing regular people out of interacting in crypto, all of the Bitcoin that gets bought will be institutions buying it at the behest of individuals who are investing in this ETF, right? You'll be able to do that with liquidity, but you won't be able to hold the underlying asset easily. In the same way that like buying paper gold is easy, but actually getting a mass amount of gold delivered to you in a car is a lot harder.
That's a great way to look at that and simplify that for people. Yeah. So right now is the way to, you have an opportunity to have the Bitcoin in your hand, but there's going to be a time where, like when is it Nixon closed the silver window?
Yeah.
And made it illegal to own gold. Was it owning gold that they made it illegal, and you had to like turn it in because of the war and all that, and they made it illegal to own in your own home,
right? And like, actually raided homes and
confiscated gold. What if they did something like that, and then the price went up?
Yeah,
of it, because then the government owned it all.
Right.
Exactly. I saw something. I saw a tweet the other day, or just. Was it this morning or yesterday, that the U.S. government has the 5th largest Bitcoin wallet?
Yep, and the third is
the dead
Robin
guy.
Hood.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say, who's the Russian guy that just died? He had a huge Bitcoin wallet.
I hadn't heard about that.
With a P. I can't say it.
I'll have to look it up.
Fell out of the plane, supposedly
I did not catch this one. So.
Oh, they supposedly killed the Vanguard guy.
Oh shit! Really?
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Hang on, let me look this up real quick.
Progan. I never say it right. I don't say it right.
Let's see. Did this happen pretty recently?
Yes, it's a big deal. While you were out.
Oh yeah, might have been while I was out.
Yeah.
See. Yep. Prigozhin?
Joe was talking about Prigozhin. Yes, I can't say it right.
Prigozhin.
See, you can't
weird.
say it either.
Yeah, well, it's weird when you're talking. It's Yevgeny Prigozhin or Prigozhin if that G is soft, but
yeah, he has one of the largest Bitcoin wallets as well.
Jeez. That was he was with the Wagner group, right? The Wagner group.
Yeah.
Depending on how you want to say that, but yeah, because they're sort of the answer to U.S. private intelligence agencies that we call security firms. Yeah, they're the BlackRock, or not the BlackRock, but the Blackwater of Russia.
Yes, very strange timing of all this right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's weird. Did you hear about? Okay, here's another one. Did you hear about Sean Hannity's, or not Sean Hannity, but Tucker Carlson's prediction for what's going to happen next year?
No.
The way that they're basically not that they're going to bring back the lockdown crisis part 2, but instead are going to start a hot war with Russia.
Oh, come on, man. I mean, I don't even think we're going to get to next year.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to make it. No,
Really?
this is going to happen now. This is happening now.
Mm.
Do you know that September is National Prepared Month?
Really?
Like, this is the hot war. This is happening now. The banks are loaded with silver. My bank is building a $10 million parking garage.
Yeah.
You believe that? You believe they're building a $10 million parking garage?
I believe that because
I don't believe they're
I
building
believe that
a $10 million
because
parking
that's
garage.
what they're saying that they're going to do with those resources, and they'll probably stake something off on the ground and then never do anything with it, but they probably will spend the money.
Yeah, I think something else is going in the ground.
Yeah.
But this is happening now. Yeah.
Well, when I was, and I probably should like wash my back when I say this, Mike's fees probably going to get cut. When I was working for Indiana at this right across the street from the State House in this building, there was some road construction going on for these blue Indy cars. It was like this local community-driven program for electric cars. They bought a bunch of these little electric beaters from France and put in charging stations, and you could sign up for them and rent them out in the same way that you might rent out a bike share.
Oh yeah. I think I've seen those. Yeah.
When they
Like a
put
smart
and
car
they had to
almost?
shut them down because people were doing crazy shit in them. Like people
Oh,
did
Lord.
not. The way that the contracts were written is you could basically wreck them and it didn't matter. So people drove them like nuts. Like I remember a friend of mine, she would get in these cars over lunch break and for fun just like cruise down the side of the road and clip people's mirrors. Just because
my God.
Yeah, she was crazy, but that's another story. But they were putting in one of these charging stations and they hit something and then black SUVs rolled up, right? And underneath in the sort of tunnel system that's underneath the Indiana Capitol, which is a thing. I can go from
It's under most of them. Yeah.
you go from building to building, and like I could actually make it from my apartment from the mall by going through tunnels. Like it wasn't like a big secret or anything. There are tunnels under there, but apparently somewhere in there was a secret Homeland Security facility that construction plunged into. So they had to move where they were putting that electric car station.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. When secrets are exposed, that's supposed to all come out too. As this dollar dies or loses its value in the system, then they're not going to be able to pay off all these people. You know, when who was it? The story came out. It was that tiger guy, and it was on Netflix and whatever. And like this.
Oh yeah, the tiger dude.
Tiger King.
He was like he hated what's her name? Damn that what's her face Braskin or whatever.
Yeah, some other lady. But there was another guy that came in and like kind of I guess tricked him or bought his place or whatever, and then it came out kind of soft disclosure to the public, but that this guy was like a paid informant, but for the FBI or CIA or something like that. And then through that, they mentioned it another couple times, and it was like people were hearing, no, wait, what does he get paid? How does he have this money? He gets paid by who? Wait, how much what's the budget every year from the FBI or the CIA pay how many Americans? So how much money every year? Well, as those secrets start falling off, if the FBI and the CIA were to go away or be defunded and or the dollar stops being valuable, all those secrets start coming out. And all this corruption starts being exposed. And so I think that's part of this too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're kind of at the crux right now. And I hate the word crux, but I'm going to use it anyway because it accurately describes the now, right?
Yeah.
We are going to hit sort of like a political singularity moment where on the other side of like sometime between now and next November, whenever it happens, whether it's between now and December,
it's not going to take that long.
I mean, that's a Lisa prediction, right? I'm personally banking on sort of the singularity moment being more like March.
Yeah, well, that by March, then, it used to be that presidents were inaugurated in March.
Right. But I think beyond that moment, whenever you peg it, you're going to have a hard time predicting the outcome because it's going to depend on factors that are going to be so chaotic and out of control. And it's going to depend on what we all do as individuals that shape the collective outcome, right? What happens next is literally more up to you. And when I say you, I mean like the royal you, everybody who hears this individually, what you do is going to shape what the outcome is. And right now, the you that we want to win, that we want this outcome to be, is disorganized, is fighting with each other, and is not focused on what's at stake. And that has to change if we're going to see the outcome be anything other than a boot stamping on the face of humanity for the rest of eternity, right?
I think we need to be really careful about that. Uncle Cliff put out a warning in his video and talking about how quickly this could and most likely will escalate, and possibly seeing military coming into the scene. And if you see your friend who chooses to wear a mask and has purple hair or whatever, be snatched up by your National Guard, you might need to reserve yourself and stay out of it. That was kind of his, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. So this is time for everybody to, be smart about your choices and take personal responsibility.
Absolutely. And I wanted to point out what Czar 15 just said, like, in the comments, he's talking about how this could come to some pretty aggressive action by authoritarian types quickly, and that they're not going to be asking nicely, and our tone, and us asking nicely, us behaving politely and in a civilized fashion is not going to save us, right? This isn't going to be a thing that we can continue on as normal, as if nothing's going on, as if it's it's trash day on Tuesday and we got to take the garbage out, or it's grocery day. Like, we have to stop thinking about the world in terms of this is normal, because it's not normal, and
it's never going back to.
It's not going to go back if we don't push it back, and that push can't be polite. Right.
Well, I think we never go back. We push it forward to the new healthy, because the past was a lie. Yeah. We know we've been lied to. And that's what Trump came out, I think, yesterday or last night, and saying, like, we do need to, it's time. I mean, I think the people that are the most mad, my husband and I were talking about this morning, we're really in a good, healthy, peaceful situation, and we've prepared for a lot of this, and I feel like we have a pretty healthy mindset about it. But we're watching some of our kids and some family members who maybe submitted before or didn't push back the first time around, and now they're really angry and mad, and we're like, well, what? Yeah, because we knew it was all BS before. So like, we see it coming back. Well, now they're mad, and they're exponentially mad because they're like, no, we did the thing
because they repressed it. Right.
They did the thing the first time, and they know, and now here it is again. Right. And so it's like, well, we knew you were being lied to the first time. So that's why we didn't play the game the first time.
Conspiracy theorists, even though you're right.
Right. And those are the people that I'm like, okay, well,
they're the ones who need to calm down and get used to living like
conspiracy theory, mommy, and we'll help you through this. Yeah.
Right.
And
yeah. So welcome to something that has been going on since well before 2000. Right. Like, welcome to something that's been going on really since 1913 and earlier.
Yes. And before 1890s
the 1890s were really big. Really,
I thought that thing was signed 1877. That contract was signed.
The way that, and I was reading H.L. Mencken quotes, so I'm sorry to give you guys a second one, but the one that I saw that was pretty awesome was basically that the North and the South during the Civil War gave up the liberty that was created by the founding, and they will never get it back. And so, so there's probably been undercurrents of this dating back to the instigation of that crisis, right? I mean, when you really think about it, the story that we know from history sounds a little bit too clean cut and a little bit too cut and dried to really be what was going on. Because they elites back then too, what were they up to?
It wasn't all agreements and everyone shaking hands.
To me, the clash is this: there is a managerial class that doesn't think regular people should have a say because they don't trust that they can. And make smart choices. And then there are people who believe that we ought to trust the people to make the decisions about the future of this country through the constitutional republic framework, right? Rather than that being a facade meant to pacify taking it seriously and literally. And right now, the people who want it to be a facade meant to pacify are the ones kind of running the show. And it's going to be a struggle against that. Like, we are going to, like, literally, we've got a president who was probably illegitimately removed from office. We have, and I say that not to hate YouTube censors, but like, I'm not saying like the way that people are saying it happened caused it, but certainly the media doing what they did, right? And certainly these sham indictments. And these sorts of things are part of this structure. But we've also got, now there's a second DOJ lawsuit against Elon Musk, right?
I didn't hear about that.
They're targeting SpaceX in two indictments.
Yes, because he's supposed to employ the illegal aliens.
Right.
Or now,
yeah, that was the first one. There's another one that came out yesterday.
Oh, I didn't hear the second one.
Let's see what the second one was. Let's see. SpaceX. DOJ.
It's Elon's job to put them to work.
Yep. So this new one is not discrimination, but let's see, news. I have to go to news to find this one. Bizarre double standard. Yep. That's the one from. Okay, it's not showing up here, but I read about it on X, where uncannily enough, I am currently shadow banned because I think I mentioned Julian Assange too much. But
I just saw something was an anniversary about Assange, and I thought of you. I tried to send you all the Assange stuff.
Yeah, I saw that. That was the good news is he's probably going to be getting out of that situation soon.
Good.
Australia's making a stink out of it. Largely because the current government was elected pretty actively by people who want Assange freed. So likely he's going to get offered a plea deal that will include time served for breach of computer system, or like the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and he'll just be straight released if he agrees to plead guilty, which it's Julian Assange. He might not, but I personally hope he does, because I think he's more used to us out of prison than in.
Just get out.
But in any case, that's kind of some good news. But we've also got these. What else kind of corruption is going on right now? There's still January 6th. Protesters in pre-trial detention.
Yes.
Right. So
I mean,
that's
something
happening.
Significant with the court systems right now. I also saw there was a huge article about all these court. I don't know what their position is, but they're like court liaison or like behind the scenes people that wrote letters saying that Judge Thomas his integrity is uncorruptible. And they wrote on his behalf. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but I'm sure that's leading up to some kind of tipping point where they're going to try to take him out, or there is some attack on Supreme Court Justice Thomas. But I didn't know what that story was all about.
Yeah, there's so much, and the other thing too to watch out for right now is there's a lot of the only kind of actual disinformation that has been out there, and that's the propaganda engine spinning fake bullshit up to get us distracted. Like, we are being
all these storms,
wall of noise with just terrible, terrible news left and right. Like they're literally like trying to make an issue of. I don't know if you guys remember that scene from V for Vendetta where they're. Actually, let's show a video clip before we get to the end of the episode.
Okay.
Because I think
I
this
love
was
a little
worth
V
watching.
for Vendetta. That's awesome.
This one's a really important scene, and it's overlooked a lot. YouTube.
Yeah, they're when you're saying they're talking about all this scary news and whatever, they've been saying all these storms, and then I call my friends in these areas and they're like, it was some wind and rain, but we're fine. I was like, okay, they're just trying to scare people. Once again.
Okay, I got the clip up, so I'm going to go to screen share if I can. Let's see. Screen share. I got to pause it. Present. Share screen. Brave tab. This one. Okay. So, are we up?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, cool, perfect. I'm going to push play. This is what's going on right now. What did I just do? Okay.
Mr. Dascom, what we need right now is a clear message to the people of this country. This message must be read in every newspaper, heard on every radio, seen on every television. This message must resound throughout the entire interlink. I want this country to realize that we stand on the edge of oblivion. I want every man, woman, and child to understand how close we are to chaos. I want everyone to remember why they need us.
In the former United States, civil war continues
you show
to
these news clips where it's just like
this latest water shortage to the lack of rainfall.
This is a legit
ministry officials expect
Bernays style propaganda tactic to promote fear and drive people to seek to be saved
outside the quarantine
from
zone,
badness
new
by
airborne
authority.
pathogen has killed 27 people.
Authorities have uncovered new evidence linking the
And we're
terrorist
also at a point where it's
organization
starting to
called
ring hollow.
to the St. Mary's viral attack on London 14 years.
Well, and I think this time around, people see that they aren't here. They aren't here to save us. That we have to save ourselves, and that's I think that's the tipping point. And I think that's the point that we're at. And when you brought up I think you brought the question up, or you changed the question to be like, what is the value of community? Or I can't remember how you stated
the community
earlier.
Attack factor, right?
What
makes an American community unique in its character,
and that's what's going to carry us forward. That's the
character that they are trying to kill. Because if they can't kill it, then we are a threat to what's about to happen. And right now we still have that, but we have to hold on to it. But we're right at the end of the episode, so and this thing will kill us at 2 hours, whether we want to or not.
So we got to go. Yeah.
So let's quickly. What's up, Lisa? What do you want to say to everybody?
Yeah.
Before we go?
I want to say that I love being on this show and part of the show. I love the community that we have on this show and in the chat and on Den.Social. So you guys keep putting in great questions. I'm really grateful to be a part of this. And please come check me out on my channel, like Queen Lisa.
Cool. Me too, by the way. I've had the same sentiment. The parting shot that I would like to leave everybody with, and I know I've been like kind of quote heavy, but bear with me. I think this is important. We have this concept called normalcy bias. And if you're not familiar with it, it's the idea that like people are super prone to stay the way that they are in like this sort of space where, oh, this is normal. But really what we have to remember is that this is not normal, and that the way to fight it is via the sort of words of wisdom of Etienne Lebody. And if you don't know who that is, look him up. He's worth reading. He wrote on dissent and political revolution through the idea that that authority is granted its power over us because we give it, the sanction of the victim, so to speak, right? So the quote that I want to leave you with is this: resolve to serve no more, and you are at once freed. The second you do it, and it's true, right?
That's simple and true. Yeah.
So resolve that right now and reject the idea that this is normal, because that's step one in the start of what's about to happen. So we will prop them up and give them what they want to take from us if we don't. So, and that's what I would leave you guys with. And if you need to build something on the blockchain in order to make that work, Rivet's here to help. So
I love it. See you guys next time on more Blockchain Roundtable.